Welcome to the Emerson Polling Report. I'm Lauren Granada with Emerson Polling Director and Professor Spencer Kimball. We will be discussing his latest poll for the Arizona Senate race and a national poll. Hi, Spencer.
Hi, Lauren.
Why are Republicans struggling to hold on to Arizona's U.S. Senate seat?
Well, Arizona is an interesting state because what's happening is the voter is shifting underneath us without us actually seeing it. And what I mean is that there's been a population shift over the last 10 years, and we'll see it come the next census when Arizona picks up another congressional seat. They'll go from 9 to 10. And so the question is, who are these new voters that are coming into Arizona? And they are coming in at a higher rate with Hispanic voters, and that obviously helps the Democratic Party. And I think that's what we've seen in the last couple of elections out in Arizona, where the Democrats have done better than they've traditionally run in a very conservative state. And so now that we take a look at that Senate race in Arizona, the Democrats, who need to pick up 3 or 4 seats depending on the presidency, are really eyeing this as a potential pickup opportunity. And the Republicans, on the flip side, are going to be spending a lot of money in a state that they should be able to hold.
And I want to look right at the Senate race poll now. Can you explain to me who these two candidates, the top 2 candidates, are?
So first is Martha McSally. And McSally was put on the ballot by Governor Doug Ducey after Jeff Flake retired. Remember, Flake came in to do the remainder of John McCain's term, voted on Kavanaugh, then after the election stepped down, and now the governor had the opportunity to appoint somebody. And what happened was McSally was running against Kyrsten Sinema in that Senate race and lost by 2.5 points. The Democrat won. And so Sinema won the race, but then McSally, as consolation, was given the appointment to the remainder of McCain's seat, which was being held by Flake, which is now being up for re-election in 2020. And so she's going against a very popular Democrat in Mark Kelly. Now, there is a bit of a primary going on, but Mark Kelly, the former astronaut, the husband to Gabby Gifford, the congresswoman who was attacked by, with gunshot. So he's popular in the state, and what we see in that race is basically a toss-up, 46-45, with Kelly slightly ahead at this point. Concerning for McSally is she's the incumbent, so she should be doing better, but that's going to be a tight race probably all the way to the finish.
Why do Democrats believe McSally is already a weak candidate?
Well, because they beat her in 2018 with Kyrsten Sinema. So anytime you've had the opportunity to beat an opponent, you think that maybe there's a roadmap, a game plan that you can use against her again in 2020. But that's McSally is also going to have the opportunity to get some legislation and try to create some better policy positions, and that's going to come down to what the candidates talk about on the campaign trail.
And what kinds of issues are voters most concerned about?
Well, in Arizona, like what we've seen around the country, the most important issue is the economy. That's for about 1/3 of the voters. But in Arizona, the second most important issue is health care. And to me, that's kind of becoming a third rail in politics because people are kind of not satisfied with the current healthcare system, which is Obamacare. And so when we asked in Arizona, what type of healthcare system do you want? Do you want the Medicare for all? Do you want the single payer option? Do you want to keep things as is? What we found was a lot of people wanted to keep things as is. But when we asked the Democrats, when we looked at the Democrats, they really want the Medicare for all policy. About 45% of those voters want that policy. When we ask Democrats and independents, only about 13-14% want that policy. And so within the Democratic primary, we're having this discussion about what policy, what healthcare policy they're going to want to replace Obamacare. On the Republican side, they're not quite sure if they even want to talk about healthcare policy. But if they have to, they're hoping just to try to keep it as is, which essentially would be confirming Obama's Affordable Care Act as the law of the land.
And you have a poll for us on the healthcare policies. Let's take a look at that now.
And as you can see in these numbers, overall, what the people are looking for is probably the public option and then keep things as it is. The push for the Medicare for all is really within the Democratic Party. And so while the Democrats are fighting for the nomination, that's going to be one of the key litmus tests, I think, within the party of which way they will go. It appears that Obamacare is not going to stand. They're going to have to do some sort of extension onto it, either the Medicare for all or the public option. At least that's what the Democrats will talk about. And then, of course, they can flip that come the general election. The big concern is that I thought in 2018, healthcare was a really important issue for Democrats to win a lot of those congressional seats and some of those Senate seats. And this time around, they're kind of so split on the issue that if we just look at Arizona in that governor's race with Doug Ducey and David Garcia in 2018, Garcia was a Medicare for All candidate, a Democrat. He lost by 15 points in that governor's race. Kyrsten Sinema was more moderate in that Senate race against McSally. She won by 3 points, did not run on a platform of Medicare for All. And so, at least in Arizona, it looks like that policy of Medicare for All might be too progressive at this point, and a winning candidate, at least in Arizona, would be more moderate with either the public option or to keep things as is.
Now let's take a look at the next poll. How can we expect the Democratic primary to play out in Arizona?
Well, Arizona right now has Joe Biden slightly ahead, around 27, 28%, and then he's followed by Warren and Sanders at about 21%. Now, Arizona is an older state. Only about 14, 15% of the electorate is under the age of 29. You're going to get a lot more people who are over 50, and this really benefits Biden if he's still in the race come March 17th when this primary is to kick off. And that might be important for him depending on where other candidates have floated after Iowa, New Hampshire, and so on. And so another candidate, though, that we noticed was Pete Buttigieg, up into that double digits. And so he is now shown in Iowa, he's shown here to have more strength than he is nationally. And it appears that he's really under the radar, but doing quite well in some of these states that might not be getting so much attention.
What can Buttigieg do to boost his numbers and get up there?
Well, he can win Iowa, or he can come in a surprising second or third place in Iowa, which would really propel him, I think, to New Hampshire. And then he's going to have some problems in South Carolina. He might have a little issue out in Nevada, but then he'll have a lot of the South and Midwest coming for Super Tuesday and after, where he'll be able to pick up some momentum. And of course, as other candidates drop out, they will shift positions. Their voters will shift to another candidate. So if, let's say, Biden was to drop, it looks like Buttigieg is kind of running in that moderate lane. Maybe he can pick up some of that Biden support. Even if Bernie or Warren were to drop, he would pick up a little bit, but because of, I think, his healthcare policy, he really wouldn't be as popular with those voters as he would be with some of the more moderate voters who might be with Klobuchar right now, and the like.
And looking at your poll, Sanders and Warren are really neck and neck in Arizona. So what can either candidate do in order to surpass the
Well, I
other?
think Bernie's in a better position because he's got a stronger base. His base of those under the age of 50 is very strong. On Warren's side, she's got a more spread out base based on age and some other demographics. So she kind of needs Bernie to falter more than Bernie needs Warren to falter because of that base vote. But if that was to happen, either one could pick up the other person's vote, particularly because that healthcare issue, they both position themselves as Medicare for All candidates. That would appease about half of the Democratic primary voters. Those other voters are going to stick with Biden or maybe switch over to Buttigieg, who want to keep things as it is. But I do see that healthcare as a main issue, and it's an important issue for the Democrats to bring up or for the Republicans, because they can kind of divide the Democratic Party based on the different policies that they're looking for.
And going back to Bernie Sanders, is Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez partially to thank for his approval among people under 50?
Well, I think he had. Remember, AOC was working for Bernie back in 2016. A lot of these folks kind of cut their teeth on the Sanders campaign back in that primary as the outside candidate. But I would say it certainly helped him, I think, revive his campaign, particularly after the heart attack, to have AOC come in and endorse him. There's a whole world on that social media platform that I don't think Joe Biden is really connecting with. And so for that younger vote, I think it is effective and helpful. Now, I'm not sure if like AOC's support of Ed Markey is going to flip things around in Massachusetts for him, but at least on the national side, it seems to have helped out Bernie, at least in the short term.
Thank you very much, Spencer.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for watching this edition of the Emerson Polling Report. Take care.